That's right. I'm sure he's listening in. I don't know.
Yes, we are. Kevin and Colleen coming balancing it out. You guys are waiting.
Thank God.
I'll call to order the meeting of the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents. Would the secretary please read the roll?
Regent Bartel.
Here.
Regent Bradley.
Here.
Regent Burmaster. Here. Regent Conley Kiesler. Here. Regent Crane. Here. Regent Keene. Here. Regent Davis. Here. Regent Drew. Regent Salvo.
Here.
Regent Loftus.
Here.
Regent Opkenard.
Here.
Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Spector.
Here.
Regent Thomas. Here. Regent Vasquez. Regent Walsh. Regent Womack. Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you. The minutes of our March 5th, 2009 meeting have been distributed. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, we'll consider those approved. You received in your folders the Wisconsin Technical College System Board report. Any questions or comments on that report? And regents on that board are Regents Keene, Burmaster, Smith, and Vasquez. Yesterday afternoon was certainly a very busy time for our standing committees, and it was also a very important time in the history of the UW system, given Governor Doyle's announcement about the shortfall in income tax revenue and sales tax revenue. Kevin and I have conferred about this after Governor Doyle made his announcement yesterday, so I'm going to ask Kevin to get right into his report.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good morning, everybody. And once again, I'd like to express our gratitude to Chancellor Santiago and his colleagues here at UW-Milwaukee for hosting a very gracious, pleasant, stimulating meeting. And I think harnessing that kind of positive energy is something we all know we'll need to do going forward here and all across the system as we size up an uncertain future. What we do know about that future is that it comes with some serious challenges. As we learned yesterday from the governor, the projected shortfall for the 09-11 biennium is now projected to grow by some $1 billion more. Even in very good budget years, the state budget process is always a bit of a roller coaster ride with lots of ups and downs and unexpected turns. At the outset of this budget-making season, we knew that we were in for a turbulent ride, with the state facing what we thought then was a $5.7 billion shortfall. When we last briefed you on our biennial budget, the UW system faced up to 174 million cuts in 74 million in cuts and reallocations. Since then, at our urging, the legislature has clarified that our gifts and grants will not be used to help close the state's budget gap. They also reduced the transfer from our campus's auxiliary funds. So with those changes, our two-year total cuts now stand at about 156 million, down from 174. I hasten to add, though, they stand at 156 million for the moment. Based on the governor's new announcement yesterday, the state's total projected shortfall now totals about $6.5 billion, indicating that our budget challenges will only grow from this point forward. Last evening, I asked the chancellors to forward a message to all UW faculty and staff, and I wanted to have you all hear that message this morning. A message to them from me, saying, as you may have heard in the news, Governor Doyle announced today his response to managing a growing budget, a state budget deficit. New projections show that the shortfall for 2009-11 is projected to be about $1 billion higher than initially expected, now totaling more than $6 billion over the biennium. Remember that the original deficit projections resulted in major challenges for us, including funding cuts and reallocations totaling as much as $174 million at one point in the process. While we had begun to see some reductions in that projected cut, we now expect the situation to worsen. The governor's proposal will require all state employees, including UW system faculty and staff to forego the 2% pay plan increase that was scheduled to take effect on June 1 of this year. It will also require all state employees, including UW faculty and staff, to take 8 days of unpaid leave or furlough in each of the next 2 years. Represented classified staff will be asked to reopen contract negotiations to allow for these furloughs or face layoffs to attain the equivalent in savings. In these extraordinary times, the governor and the legislature are facing tough choices to help the state regain its financial footing and preserve core services in a deepening economic crisis. We know that the UW system institutions play a major role in the state's economic recovery and renewal. With that in mind, we will continue to advocate for strategies that minimize further harm to our core mission of teaching, research, and service. At the same time, we must remain cognizant of the broader context, extreme economic turmoil that has resulted in business closings and family hardships here and across the nation. We are not immune from those economic impacts. More information will be forthcoming on the details of the governor's proposals and their implications for our university workforce. I recognize that these kinds of actions will have a big impact on each of you, your colleagues, and your families, and we will be mindful of that impact going forward. I thank you for your continued efforts on behalf of the students and citizens of Wisconsin. I think the question before us now is, how do we do the least damage to our commitments in the face of the state's severe fiscal challenges so that the university can continue to help the state and its residents rebound from this major recession and position itself for a bright future post-recovery in the spirit of our growth agenda for Wisconsin. So we'll be working hard with the chancellors and other colleagues across the system over the next few weeks to develop a plan that reflects these commitments. We'll make our case, which I'd argue is Wisconsin's case, very strongly to the governor and the legislature as we put that plan together. Their reactions will help shape what we have to do, what this board has to do. As always, we'll bring the proposed plan back to the board for your advice and reaction. We will get past this recession, and as we all have seen, there are some positive signs out there already that point the way. We'll get past it and we'll get on to recovery. The question then will be, did Wisconsin comport itself through the recession in a way that propelled it ahead in the recovery and beyond? We intend to answer that question with a yes, and for the UW to have adequate resources and resilience to help get Wisconsin to that yes. Well, while our state revenues have been light on the inflow, as we found out yesterday, the influenza has been strong. While there haven't been any major outbreaks of the H1N1 virus to date in Wisconsin, we are operating on the premise that it's best to be prepared. We have gathered information from our institutions across the UW system on their activities to manage the swine flu challenge. Maintaining good communications is, of course, vital in this kind of situation. We're also planning ahead to deal with the what-if scenarios, using procedures outlined in our general emergency response plans to coordinate what steps should be taken if the flu situation should escalate. I also would like to point out that many UW health experts are at the forefront of the state's and the nation's efforts to deal with the H1N1 flu. So we are preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. Here to tell us some more about how the UW system institutions are dealing with the situation is our Senior Vice President, Tom Andres. Tom.
Good morning. I've just got some brief comments. Then Julie Bonner, who is Dr. Julie Bonner, who is the head of the medical services here on the campus, will offer a little bit of background and then provide you with any responses you might want to questions you have. Sorry. The system to this point, actually it's been about a week and a half that we got out to all of the campuses and requested information. Specifically, what we were looking for were planning and action steps regarding the flu on each of the campuses, communications with the local community, what they were doing with their local health agencies, the next steps that they would be taking if the threat elevated, plans or actions with students that are abroad or are planning to go abroad, and then whatever else sort of system help we could do in coordinating. Most of the campuses have been in contact with local health agencies, counties, hospitals, clinics, and are being informed by the CDC and other state sources. Many have activated teams focused on addressing any events that might come up. We requested immediate communication from all of the campuses on any probable and confirmed cases, and we have continued to monitor those. We set up a weekend communications process through the system to receive and provide any information that we would get and receive any that they might have on the flu. We shared information from the state, through OSER, DHS, DOA. There's been a lot of communication going on at the state level and passing information around, both from state agencies and through the federal level. Campuses with study abroad programs in Mexico are monitoring the situation. There are a number of students that are in Mexico. They've all been contacted. They have the option of coming back or not. Some have come back. Some are going to be staying there. And certainly there are more probable trips that are right now going to happen, and they're really just monitoring the conditions on a day-to-day basis. And we've also referred campuses to review really what we see as good flu pandemic type plans from other UWS campuses, because all of the campuses have been in some level of planning and developing action steps prior to these occurrences. If there aren't any questions, I'd like to ask Dr. Bonner to come up, and again, she can just provide you with some background in terms of what's happening in Milwaukee, and then answer any questions you might have.
Good morning. Take the opportunity to share with you a brief overview of H1N1 flu and the UW-Milwaukee specific campus planning and response. As we all know, H1N1 flu arrived and was recognized as a national and international pandemic threat approximately 12 days ago. There are currently declared national and state public health emergencies. State, local, and campus pandemic plans have been activated. Currently, the most recent data available from the state of Wisconsin is that our state has 233 confirmed cases of H1N1 flu. There are approximately 41 states now currently reporting confirmed cases. Here's a quick summary specific to our campus in terms of H1N1 flu. On April 27th, I notified the Chancellor, the Chancellor's Cabinet, and key emergency operations team of the potential escalating threat of H1N1 influenza. It's important to note that at this time, while the threat was influenza, the actions that we took and the process and places could apply to several different types of potential large-scale emergencies. Our emergency operations team has been meeting on a daily basis, and the key individuals involved are University Safety and Assurances, University Relations, Academic Affairs, our police, our housing, facilities, human resources, enrollment services, University Information Technology Services, and of course the Norris Health Center, our healthcare delivery system for students. UW-Milwaukee has an up-to-date emergency operations plan that had recently been tested, and we followed those procedures in the initial state of the outbreak, knowing that the duration and nature of pandemic influenza also requires us to work within our continuity of operations plan. In addition, UWM has a pandemic influenza plan, which is built on the foundation of these campus-level plans, is built on guidelines from the American College Health Association as well as the CDC, and is also based on UW-Madison's pandemic response plan. Our primary goal of the plan is to reduce transmission and illness severity while maintaining and minimizing potential disruption on university operations. In terms of our specific actions, many of them were already covered by Tom. I do want to point out in terms of communication, we were very conscious of the multiple audiences, including students, faculty, staff, parents, community partners, local public health, our healthcare systems, and UW system. In terms of our communication with our local and state public health authorities, We have an excellent routine communication system with them, as well as UW system health directors communicated to monitor activity on all college campuses in Wisconsin. In terms of our preparations and actions, it became immediately obvious that our broad interactions that we have with the metropolitan Milwaukee community, particularly that with Milwaukee Public Schools, was very relevant under these circumstances. Many of our student teachers, social workers have field placements in our Milwaukee Public Schools. We have Milwaukee Public School children in our daycare center, and we have our excellent pre-college and trio program, which has Milwaukee Public High School students who arrive on our campus. As you may recall from the Chancellor's presentation yesterday, we have other numerous community partnerships. These involve many of our faculty, staff, and students, and we were in communication with those organizations as well. So in terms of looking towards tomorrow, we anticipate that the situation and recommendations from the CDC, state, and City of Milwaukee related to H1N1 will continue to evolve quickly and on a daily basis. CDC issued interim guidelines on both the 3rd of May and as recently as the 6th of May, specifically related to colleges and universities, highlighting the recognition of the challenges that universities face and the impact that pandemic flu has on our environment. Overall, if illness severity is confirmed to be low and the spread of it slows, we can anticipate that we begin to operate more close to how we operate in terms of seasonal influenza. This, of course, will continue to include the message for individuals to stay home if they're ill, and, of course, good personal hygiene habits. The risk remains, however, even if the current situation improves, that the virus will reemerge this fall, potentially more widespread and virulent. All preparations and planning completed now will improve the university's ability to respond now and in the future. And of course, so will the real-life response that we've been experiencing and involved with in the past 2 weeks. Thank you for your attention, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Just two questions. Can you give us the definition of what it means when you say a case is a confirmed case? And then second, what happens to that person and the people they would have come in contact with?
Sure. So in terms of case definitions, and there is supposed to be revised case definitions coming out from the CDC in the very near future, even today with the expected time frame. A confirmed case is once there's been a laboratory confirmation that the individual has H1N1 influenza. A probable case is that the individual has tested positive for an influenza virus which has not yet been subtyped and clearly identified as H1N1 flu. What is occurring at a CDC and a state level, and we are doing level at our City of Milwaukee, we're doing testing at City of Milwaukee, is about 99% of probable cases are being confirmed because this is not our normal influenza season. So most individuals that test positive for influenza will be cases of H1N1 flu. The guidance now currently in certain communities where there is more widespread cases is actually that that confirmed case be isolated and that local public health departments do a case investigation on close household contacts and provide them with guidance in terms of continuing their normal activities or remaining at home and observing themselves for illness. The decisions are being made based on the fact that an individual can be infectious 1 day prior to actually having symptoms. So in terms of its impact on a university level, a confirmed case would not be on campus. They would be isolated for a minimum of 7 days, and then we would work with the local public health authorities in terms of contacts as to whether those individuals would be advised to continue their normal routine or may be advised to, at any early sign of illness, isolate themselves and get guidance from their health professional.
Mike?
I just want to compliment you on the effectiveness of your presentation, because while you were speaking, the chairman of the Education Committee took out her hand sanitizer and washed her hands.
question. I'm not sure it's for the doctor, but perhaps for Tom or someone else. Does the University of Wisconsin system have a public health coordinator? Does someone watch this system-wide? Is someone available to do that?
The closest we have to it is Dr. Andres at the moment.
How many of our campuses do have a qualified health officer, and do our campuses all have a pandemic plan?
All of the campuses, there's a number of campuses that have complete plans, actions. Like, as I mentioned, the information that we've gotten indicates that probably 75% of the campuses have plans that they could just pull out and apply. The rest are in some stage of planning. They've all sort of begun to look at it. They've been looking at other plans, but they are in differing stages, as with most. All of them have a health care contact. I think most of them have, obviously, they've got student health care facilities, and in those instances, as in the case of Milwaukee, you've got a single individual which then is in contact with the rest of the campus community and even with the system. There's Milwaukee and Madison are obviously hubs, and there's a lot of information that's passed between the campuses as these sorts of instances occur.
It seems to me that the campuses could easily put in place, all of the campuses could easily put in place a pandemic plan, just using what's been developed at Madison or Milwaukee or other places. And it seems to me all of the campuses should have at least someone who is qualified to make decisions and to give advice to the campus on health challenges.
I agree. And I think all of the campuses have that person, but not all of the campuses have the same level of a final plan that's been implemented, and that's what they're working on.
We have organized the ability for campuses to share information around this, and for the campuses that have more advanced plans to assist those that are in an earlier planning stage. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think it's especially important in tough times to remind ourselves of how important, noble, wonderful the work is that we do in higher education. And I think we've had evidence of that all around us during this visit to the Milwaukee campus, perhaps most notably in the opening session yesterday with the 3 graduate and 1 undergraduate researchers who addressed the board. So I do want to take a few minutes today just to talk about a few other good news items going on around the system. I mentioned yesterday, I think, that we did hold our 6th annual Posters in the Rotunda event, and some of you were there. This is a celebration of undergraduate research specifically. We had the opportunity, the privilege to see up close the exciting breadth and diversity of the research projects being done at our institutions by highly motivated, highly innovative undergraduate students. We had about 140 of them there, and nearly 36 faculty advisors from our campuses. The Posters celebration, I think, reminds us how academic and research and development can be a shining, inspiring example of the innovation and entrepreneurial spirit that is so necessary for us to get to economic recovery and for the future growth of our community, state, and nation. So it was a very hopeful event. I think, just like the stories you heard yesterday from the students who spoke, these kinds of events really show us that if we can give our students the right resources, the right support, UW system students are capable of just extraordinary things. On a similar note, congratulations to Chancellor Gao and UW-La Crosse, which recently hosted the 23rd National Conference on Undergraduate Research. More than 2,500 student scholars and faculty members from about 300 colleges and more than 30 states attended the event, which made it the largest conference that UWL has ever hosted, Joe, I understand. It provided another wonderful opportunity to see the exciting research that students are engaged in today, not only our own students, but undergraduates from all over the country. It's only the 2nd time that the conference has been held in Wisconsin. Incidentally, UW-Whitewater hosted the conference back in 2002. Also from Wisconsin's western campuses, UW-River Falls and its Tissue and Cellular Innovation Center recently co-hosted the second annual Bio-Nanotechnology Workshop in conjunction with Chippewa Valley Technical College. Dr. Timothy Lydon, who's the director of the Tissue and Cellular Innovation Center at UW-River Falls, calls the event one of the cornerstones of the growing relationship with Chippewa Valley Tech's NanoRite Center in Eau Claire. That relationship is part of a joint effort between the two institutions, between the two public systems in the state, to help more students gain background knowledge and practical experience with cell culture, stem cell biology, and tissue engineering fundamentals, as well as an introduction to labeling cells and fluorescent microscopy. So we congratulate Dr. Lydon and Interim Chancellor Connie Foster and her colleagues at River Falls for that. Looking ahead, on May 14th, UW-Eau Claire will host the first ever Wisconsin Idea Forum. This is an exciting new project that really puts the Wisconsin Idea into action, tapping into the UW system's long-standing tradition of leveraging our resources to benefit the citizens of Wisconsin. The forums will convene diverse voices and stakeholders for a substantive and far-reaching policy discussion on some weighty topics, including social, environmental, and economic challenges. This is the forums as a group of events as we look forward. The first forum, the one on the Eau Claire campus next week, as you may have heard, is called Addressing Alcohol Abuse Through Public Policy, Finding Common Ground. Very timely and very connected to the presentation that we heard yesterday from colleagues here in Milwaukee on this issue. This is an ambitious project, we think, with great potential for the state. We look forward to seeing its results, and we congratulate Brian and his colleagues on stepping up and being the first campus to host one of these. These forums, if you recall, are one of the action steps that grew out of the Advantage Wisconsin strategic planning process. One of the 11 action steps said we would do this, and we're happy to kick it off next week at Brian's campus. We also want to congratulate Stephen Collison, our Associate Vice President for Academic and Faculty Programs, for an award he recently received. Stephen was honored as an exemplary leader by the Association of Research Directors at its 15th Biennial Research Symposium Awards Banquet in Atlanta. He was recognized for his achievements and contributions toward the advancement of agricultural research at the historically black land-grant universities as a faculty member as well as an administrator for a period of 18 years. These years included service at Tuskegee University and Tennessee State University. Stephen was lauded for combining vision, diplomacy, and political astuteness in leading the Association of Research Directors during his tenure as chair of that group from 2004 to 2006. Stephen joined the UW system in September 2008, as you recall, and we're happy to have him. And again, congratulations to you, Steve. Good work. From UW-Oshkosh, we hear that their Model United Nations team has extended its record winning streak with the most impressive 25th consecutive Outstanding Delegation Award at the 2009 National Model United Nations Competition. The international competition was held in early April at the UN headquarters in New York City. This year's event featured 4,700 students from 300 universities in 36 states, 5 Canadian provinces, and 24 countries on 5 continents. Among other things, students are judged on their knowledge of global issues and their familiarity with the United Nations system, as well as their diplomatic and negotiating skills. So we congratulate Chancellor Rick Wells and his colleagues and students on that. Kudos also to the UW Whitewater men's wheelchair basketball team. The team recently won its 8th national championship and 5th this decade. Talk about being on a roll. I mean, I couldn't resist. To reclaim the honor, the Warhawks under Coach Jeremy Lottie beat the defending champion Fighting Illini from the University of Illinois by a score of 82-76. So congratulations, Chancellor. The National Science Foundation has awarded scholarships in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the infamous STEM disciplines, grant of $567,000 to UW Stouts Applied Science Program for support of the project, quote, Polytechnic Mission, Applied Science Vision. As a result, beginning in fall 2010, incoming students in the applied sciences have the opportunity to apply for $10,000 scholarships, and current and future applied science students may apply for $5,000 scholarships. This is the first time for the university to receive this renewable grant, so we congratulate Chancellor Sorensen and his colleagues at Stout. So, Mr. President, I think it's important to remember these bright spots that can be found all over the UW system, even when the clouds loom, if we only take time to look. And on that note, I'll conclude my remarks and turn the floor back over to you.
Well, thanks, President Riley. I agree with that, and I have a couple of positive comments and good news items that I think the board would be interested in. And the first involves President Riley. In April, he was honored with the Signature of Excellence Award by the University Continuing Education Association at their 94th annual conference in Boston. That award honors a chief executive officer of a higher education institution who has demonstrated, they say, exemplary service to the field of continuing higher education and unique qualities of leadership. Kevin was also recognized at that time for his role in conceiving and implementing with others our growth agenda for Wisconsin. So congratulations on that, Kevin. And last week, President Riley and Chancellor David Wilson of UW Colleges and Extension were each presented with a commendation from Governor Doyle for their above and beyond involvement with Project Lead the Way, which, if you recall from our August meeting, supports efforts to get more science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM disciplines Kevin just talked about, into Wisconsin's middle schools and high schools. And these objectives are right in line with our growth agenda for Wisconsin. I'm also very pleased to announce that last month was a busy month for President Riley, he was elected by his peers throughout the country as Vice President of the National Association of System Heads, or NASH. He will serve for a 2-year term as Vice President. Charles Reed is the President of NASH and also the President of the California State University System. And Kevin, I know I speak on behalf of all of the board members that we are delighted that you continue to take and continue to be recognized for your leadership in national higher education matters. So thank you very much. And I want to extend congratulations to Regent Falbo, who was recently honored during the 5th annual Celebrazione Italiana at UW Parkside. He was presented with the 2009 UW Parkside Lifetime Recognition Award. So congratulations, Regent Falbo. At that same celebration, there was a moment of silence for our former colleague, Regent Al DeSimone. Regent Falbo told us about Regent DeSimone's career at a previous meeting. Al died in February of this year. And it is with mixed feelings that we publicly congratulate Regent Libby Burmaster, who in mid-March after our meeting was named as president of the Nicolay College in Rhinelander. Libby has been a member of this board since 2001 when she was first elected as superintendent of public instruction, and she has helped us all with her insight and also her dedication for excellence in education. So Libby, thank you for your service, and we wish you the best on your new adventure in higher education.
I might say there, I always like to remind Superintendent, soon-to-be President Burmaster, that my wife and I and kids have a house on a lake up close to Nicolay Tech. We're in the district, so I'm a taxpayer now in the Nicolay Tech district, and I'll be over on a regular basis to kick the tires and make sure everything's going well.
And feel free to call and say, why isn't this being done?
That's right, Jeff, too. That's right. That's right. Two of it.
You'll notice that John Drew is not with us at these meetings. And, in this atmosphere of crises, I just wanted to let everybody know, John is the regional representative of the UAW. And he right now is engaged where his presence is required on almost a 24-hour basis as the automakers deal with their own crisis. So it's not that John is neglecting us. He is very, very busy, and he hated to miss the meeting, but we certainly understand. Well, we hear about all these crises, and I was thinking last night, this is a very challenging time to be a member of the Board of Regents. We don't get paid for what we do, but we get the high privilege of having to use our talents, our own educations, our experiences, and our judgment to try to deal with what is facing higher education at this time. These challenges, in many ways, are historic. None of our predecessors have had to deal with the magnitude of the challenge that we have before us. And at the same time, none of our predecessors have been under such intense pressure to increase the number of graduates from our institutions rather than decrease them. I'm daunted by the task, but I'm undaunted in my belief that we have the ability to handle this wisely. Some of us have campus visits scheduled, and I was thinking about this last night when faculty, students, citizens at large have every right to think more than they might ever have thought. Who are those people who are going to be trying to get us through this crisis? And I sort of made a list, and I think people in this state ought to be encouraged. We have very knowledgeable, sensitive student representation on this board. We have educators. We have people who run companies in the private sector very successfully and who are dealing with similar crises among their employees. We have regents with local and state, national political experience. We have regents who have set policy in difficult times with local school boards, with the technical college system, and with the Board of Regents. We have regents with experience in banking and finance, in regulatory law and investments. We have regents with lots of public and private sector personnel experience. And sort of to ground us all, we have regents who have recently had children going to college, public and private, and we have regents who currently have family members who are attending our institutions. So I think we have the talent. I know we have the dedication. It's going to be a matter of us rolling up our sleeves and using those talents to try to make the best decisions we possibly can. And I'd like to assure the UW system and the people of this state that we are all committed to do that. So I would like to now call upon Regent Brent Smith, who is the chair of the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee, and ask him to give his committee report.
Thank you, President Bradley. I think most of you were present when we met yesterday with the Education Committee to review and approve the interim guidelines for making textbooks more affordable. We also heard about the UW-Milwaukee presentation on combating alcohol and drug abuse, which we'll hear from a little bit more from Regent Davis. Our committee also met jointly with the Capital Planning and Budget Committee, namely Regent Bartell, I think, to hear an update on the UW-Milwaukee Master Plan, which you'll hear about from Jeff. We then went on when we had met to talk about our main event of the day, of course, to talk about the UW-Madison Undergraduate Differential Tuition Initiative. And that was quite, as you might expect, a discussion over a couple hours. We first heard from Tom Andrews, who gave us some background information on the Madison Initiative. highlighting its goals, funding requirements, student and private funding sources, tuition and fee comparisons, which is a very interesting graph, to Big Ten peers. I think maybe it was Chancellor Martin who gave that, and steps taken by the university to ensure accountability to the campus community. We did hear from Chancellor Martin, College of Letters and Sciences Dean Gary Sandifer, and China Haas of the Associated Students of Madison, and they presented on behalf of the university. 3 other students from UW-Madison were present too, one testifying in opposition to the initiative and 2 in support. We're ready for, I'm sure, further discussion on that today, but the key to the initiatives, as we understand, are increasing access to courses and majors, preserving the quality and value of the UW-Madison degree, and preserving affordability. We had a healthy exchange of questions and answers with the Chancellor. Questions centered around the rationale for the hold harmless floor set at $80,000 and the appropriate accountability mechanisms. After considerable discussion, the committee amended the resolution to clarify holding students with a family income of less than $80,000 harmless from a tuition increase, adding an annual report to the board, and reducing the review period to 4 years. So on behalf of the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee, I now move adoption of Resolution 12A as amended, the UW-Madison undergraduate differential tuition. I know Chancellor Martin, we talked about before today. She's here, obviously, and although we had good discussion yesterday with a lot of exchange, she's certainly available for further questions if any of the members would want to do that.
Second.
And we have a motion, and it's seconded, and if I could ask the chair and the board, the leader of ASM at Madison campus was not able to appear before Regent Smith's committee. She is able to be here today. She has asked for permission to speak, and with your indulgence.
Sure.
And then also there's another student who was not able to testify yesterday before the committee, who would like to speak, I believe, in opposition to this motion, and then another student who was scheduled to speak and just wasn't able to. So would it be okay with you if we heard from those students now?
Excellent.
Perhaps the ASM representative would like to lead off, if that's okay. You could just sit next to Judy Temby and take that microphone, please.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Again, my name is Brittany Wiegand, and I'm the outgoing chair of the Associated Students of Madison, which is UW-Madison's official student government. My term ended on April 30th. However, I was heavily involved over the past few months in the Madison Initiative. So I'm going to speak to you about student outreach and how students have had the opportunity to be engaged in a very meaningful way, I believe, in the Madison Initiative. And then, as President Bradley mentioned, a student is going to speak in opposition, and then a student is going to speak to the quality of a UW-Madison education. I apologize for not being able to be at the committee meeting yesterday. I couldn't find a substitute for me at work. I sent out a memo to the members of the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee, and I do have 3 extra copies. I know that's not enough for everybody, but if you're interested, I have a couple of copies here. And like I said before, I believe that both students and administrators, but we've been engaged in a very meaningful way with the Madison Initiative. In early March, ASM leadership, myself as chair and the vice chair, Hannah Carnes, met with Chancellor Martin in order to discuss the initiative and how it was going to be unveiled to students. We very much wanted students to be engaged, have the opportunity to give comments, feedback, constructive criticism, and the Chancellor was very willing to hear our thoughts. She was very receptive to everything we had to say and comments that we had. On March 24th, the Madison Initiative was unveiled to 48 student leaders at Olin House. Students were able to voice their concerns to several administrators that were present and have specific concerns addressed, and then also things that couldn't be answered right away were addressed later through email or a follow-up meeting. After the Madison Initiative was unveiled to the student leaders at Olin House, there were 2 listening sessions held. One was on that Thursday, and then The next week, one was held on Monday, and this one was co-sponsored by ASM. Specifically, we were looking to get student feedback on the initiative, but we were also hoping to get recommendations for the student services piece. So we broke down into small groups, and students present were able to say what student services they wanted to see improved on campus, and then we shared those with the chancellor. And again, she was very receptive to hearing those. In the following weeks, Dean of Student Staff and ASM Student Council representatives outreached to student groups. ASM Student Council is comprised of 33 elected representatives from both undergraduate and graduate schools at UW-Madison. Chancellor Martin presented to Student Council and answered questions on April 8th, and Student Council passed a list of, we passed a resolution that had a partial endorsement of the initiative. And in this resolution, we had a list of several questions. Some more concerns that we had about the proposal, more information that we wanted. The Chancellor responded to those questions at the meeting and then sent us a written response in the days following that meeting. Student Council did not vote officially on the Madison Initiative at this time. We postponed our final decision until April 22nd. We wanted 2 extra weeks to continue to talk with students, and during those 2 weeks, Student Council representatives met with students in dorms. They continued to meet with student organizations. They outreached the Greek community and talked with friends, random students in classes, and just people that they would see, acquaintances, in order to get their opinions and make sure that students were involved and engaged in the proposal. And then, in order to diversify our outreach methods, we conducted 2 online surveys, and the results of the surveys are in the memo that I sent out. The first survey was conducted from April 3rd to April 9th, and this was sent out to just a portion of students on campus, approximately 9,000 students. And the intention of this survey was solely to gauge whether or not students had heard about the initiative and then where they were hearing about it. It did also gauge their initial reaction, but mostly we were interested in learning about whether or not students were learning about the initiative and whether or not they were having their questions answered and how they were going about doing that. After gathering the survey results, ASM leadership and Dean of Student Staff thoroughly reviewed the results and the comments provided. There were 621 comments in order to ensure that students' comments and their concerns were being addressed. Like I mentioned, let's see. We sent out a second survey in order to continue to reach out to students electronically, and this was sent to 37,000 students on campus. And this was conducted from April 23rd to this past Wednesday, May 6th. And this was just this was an opportunity for students to give a final explanation of how they felt. They could say, yes, I support the Madison Initiative, or no, I don't. And then there was an opportunity for them to again give comments, and there were several hundred comments. The results of that survey were very close. It was about 50.43% in favor of the initiative, and then there were several comments that we had, or that students had. Let's see. Although several individuals voiced concerns regarding financial aid specifics, the Student Council endorsed the Madison Initiative on April 22nd, 2009, because we felt that the benefits to students significantly outweighed the cost of the increased tuition, specifically because the impact that the Madison Initiative will have on the quality of education at UW-Madison. And again, prior to making this decision, Student Council members did extensive outreach to students on campus by attending student organization meetings, networking in dorms, talking with friends, and also social networking sites like Facebook were used to reach students on campus. And almost every Student Council member spoke to their extent of engagement with students on campus before we voted on the proposal, so that they could explain to whom they've outreached to, what concerns that students have, and things like that. And again, ASM strongly felt that it was a vote of 17 to 1 to 3, and we strongly felt that the Madison Initiative would increase the quality of UW-Madison in the coming years. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Good, thank you. And in the future, if you can't make a board committee meeting, it's better to say you were in class. That always works. That always works. But thank you very much.
Morning. My name is Jonas Zinn. I'm an incoming member, representative of ASM, and I'm the incoming chair of Academic Affairs Committee. And I've come today to speak against the Madison Initiative. I personally don't support this initiative because I see it as a short-term fix for a larger problem that needs to be addressed in higher education in general. While I do want to commend this body for attempting to navigate this economic crisis and attempting to make education more accessible for students, I think the general approach is something that will not be effective in a few years. I think given the rate of increase in tuition that we've seen and given what the Madison Initiative proposes for its tuition increase in a number of years, I feel that the initiative will not be able to pay for the goals it initially set out to pay for. And I feel that we should not be sticking future students with this bill. I think that also given this economic climate and what I see the long-term effects of this initiative to be, it seems ridiculous that we would have any student or any student families pay more for higher education, which I think we all agree is very essential in our modern society. I would like to see, in the coming years, and that's something I will try to work on the student council, the students having a closer relationship with the Board of Regents and having a closer relationship with Wisconsin legislators, because I think it's our job to make sure that the state puts higher education as one of its top priorities, because I think it will determine the future of this state. And overall, while I do not personally support this initiative, I feel like this is something that we need to have a referendum on or have a vote on, have students vote on it, because as much as I would love to come to you and speak to you and say that I'm a legitimate representative of all of Madison, with our voter turnout rates as low as they are, I can't do that. And I think as the past ASM should be commended for having outreach efforts, but I think that those outreach efforts need to be continued and need to be escalated to the average student, particularly the incoming freshmen who are going to have to pay the full bulk of this initiative. And I think this is a major decision that affects students directly, and they need to be involved. The average student needs to be involved as closely as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And our final speaker.
Hi, my name is Chris Tiernan, and I'm actually the outgoing chair of the Academic Affairs Committee with ASM. And I'm going to be speaking in favor of the Madison Initiative today. I would like to start by saying that although I am against tuition increases that are not necessary, I think that looking to the state to solve this problem, although it would be nice, I don't think it's a reality. I think that in the economic time that we are in, it's not something that's going to be able to happen. And so with that, I'd like to start talking about the effects of the Madison Initiative on the quality of education at UW-Madison. As the former Academic Affairs Chair of ASM, I've worked extensively with students as well as administrators and department heads on the issue of not being able to house all of the students that they'd like to in their departments. One example of this is the Spanish department on our campus. They're having to turn away majors who would like to learn more about the language and really take this as something that they can put into their future careers. Although due to lack of faculty, they're unable to house them in their department. They're also having a hard time allowing any students who'd like to learn more about the language take their classes due to bottleneck courses and an inability to allow them into the course, because as you know, with a language, if you have too many people, it becomes ineffective to learn the language if you have too many in the course. And so due to lack of faculty, they're unable to house all of these students. And in the global community that we live in, I think that this is something that's very important to our education, is learning languages besides English so that we can communicate with the rest of the world. And this is only one example of the departments that are having problems such as this. And so So with that, the Madison Undergraduate Initiative, I think would help alleviate this problem by hiring faculty to open up these courses and allow more students to graduate in 4 years, taking all of the classes that they need to take and also that they would like to take to be able to graduate. With that, I'd like to ask if, because we have 2 other representatives here, I would like to ask if they can reiterate what they said yesterday briefly, touching on the need-based financial aid issue that this initiative speaks to, and also how this initiative is going to affect the other schools on our campus that already have differential tuition. So I would like to ask permission if that's okay with this board.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
That was good. Looking right at you that last night, weren't you?
Thank you for the opportunity to let me and the other speaker reiterate some of our comments and expand them a little further from the committee that we spoke with yesterday. My name is China Hawes. I'm a junior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm double majoring in Communication Arts and Women's Studies with a certificate in American Indian Studies and will thankfully be out in 4 years. I wanted to speak to the issues of the need-based financial aid that will be coming from this initiative. As you've heard, UW-Madison has $20 million of unmet financial need. So what this means for low-income students and medium-income students is that primarily the financial aid award packages that they receive are comprised of subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Currently myself, as a working-class student and as a first-generation college student, I'll be graduating university with approximately $21,000 at least in debt. And that's all coming strictly from my financial aid packages. That's no other loans on top of it. We talked a lot about the crisis that we're in within the state, and personally, my father is unemployed due to the recession. My mother is unemployed due to an injury. And looking at that, I'm still only eligible for loans next year because the University of Wisconsin-Madison does not have the money and the resources to provide students who are impacted by this recession the money for their financial aid packages outside of loans. And this is something that I think not only hinders the students who are here, but also turns away students who want to attend this university who are from these families and these communities. Economic diversity is something that we do talk about vaguely. It's usually in mission statements as something that we want to prioritize. I think it's something we should applaud that we have a chancellor at our university who is putting this at the forefront of this initiative. Economic diversity in the classroom is something that has been lacking during my experience for 3 years at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's something that I've almost dropped out repeatedly. I've almost switched to other universities because it's been something that's been very difficult to deal with. So the fact that this initiative would be increasing that diversity and putting that at the forefront of our discussion is something that we really need to take into consideration when looking at this initiative. Beyond that, as we've already spoke about, we're really concerned about the Wisconsin idea. And as what was stated is we say this is levying our resources to benefit the citizens of Wisconsin. As you know, our state is battling a recession, rising unemployment rates, and significant shift in the industrial makeup of our state. Now more than ever, I say that it's imperative that we support the citizens of our state by committing to providing a quality, affordable education at its flagship university. Yes, this will raise the tuition for individuals whose families make over $80,000. But looking at the fact of the matter that most of the individuals in the state who were losing their jobs due to this recession, they're under that mark, and they would like the opportunity to send their children to the flagship university and also themselves in some circumstances to seek a quality education. $20 million of unmet need is what slams the door of a quality education, quality higher education, in the faces of Wisconsin citizens. I'm a lifelong resident of the state of Wisconsin, as are both of my parents, and I'm the child of 2 displaced Wisconsin workers. And I ask you to support this initiative and to show the state of Wisconsin and students like myself that you do value the Wisconsin idea and it's not empty words, and that you do value us and our presence at this university and within the system. Thank you for your time.
Morning. Appreciate the time as well to reiterate some of the comments I spoke to the Finance Committee about yesterday. I am a member of the Wisconsin School of Business who recently has implemented an incremental tuition as well. And within that, we've seen the success of what can happen with this incremental tuition. And we've seen it within the smaller level, within just one college within the university. But expanding this to the university-wide level with the Madison Initiative is something that I see extreme similarities between. With the incremental tuition within the Wisconsin School of Business, we've been able to fortify our curriculum with 3 additional faculty that are focused on high-demand undergraduate majors within the finance, marketing, and management majors. In addition to just the faculty, we've been able to add student services with 1 career advisor and 2 academic advisors to help the process of students as they go through academically and finding that position once they're done with their schoolwork. By doing this, we've been able to maintain our School of Business at UW-Madison as one of the top business programs in the nation. This is something that wouldn't be possible without the extra funds to be able to continue that education and even increasing it to the sophomore level now. But more importantly than just adding the faculty and staff, what the incremental tuition in the business school has done is really fostered a culture change and bringing the administration and the students together to show their dedication to the quality of the education here and now in the present. And what that dedication is showing to the alumni is that we're dedicated to it here and now, and that is fostering in them a dedication to the university that they went to and keeping the quality of the education that they had and continuing that in the future. I'm very confident that the Madison Initiative will have this same effect at the university level on the 360,000 alumni that are out there at the university-wide level, let alone the 36,000 that are from the Wisconsin School of Business and shown this. So I'd like to thank Chancellor Biddy Martin for all of her work that she's done on this. I'd like to thank the Finance Committee for passing it through and bringing it to this entire board. And I really hope that you guys see exactly from the student perspective that while we will be paying this extra tuition, and even within the School of Business, we will be hit twice with it, that we see the positive effects from it, and we're going to continue to have the dividends paid to us in the years to come. So we're dedicated to it now, and we really hope that you guys can see this and will support it as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You know, former President Bush was famous for saying, "I am the decider." So I just want you to know how this works when you're the decider. The request is for 6 speakers. I said 2. The compromise was 3, and there were 5. Yeah, that's right. Procedurally, I'm going to consider that as part of the discussion, or the initial discussion, on this resolution. There was a motion made. It was seconded. We've had our initial discussion. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Regent Spector.
I just have a question. I didn't understand, Brent, what the one amendment yesterday was to make it an annual evaluation.
There was considerable discussion about that. Here, that is as follows: that we'd have an annual report to our committee, which also, as Chancellor Martin indicated, would be available on the website. A lot of information, but there'd be an annual report, and actually review just generally how things are. Yeah, obviously the money, but generally provide some report. But there'd also be the review, which we do for all the differentials, which is usually 5 years, would be 4 years instead of 5. Those. Could you describe all the changes? The only other change that was actually made was to insert the $80,000 hold harmless language. That was in the resolution. I think that was part of the proposal, but it wasn't in the resolution. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear, that that's what the intent.
So the $80,000 is still adjusted gross income, the same test as before, it's just
Correct.
In the resolution.
It would just we make sure it wasn't in the resolution.
Regent Crane.
I was not part of the committee discussion yesterday, so do want to indicate that I think that a very thoughtful process has been conducted through this. I do strongly support this, both for the quality issue and the issue of financial aid. The one thing that that I have thought about is we look at as the plan is evaluated, as it's spun out, is whether there is an effect on middle-income people around maybe just over the 80,000 whether that affects applications, the number of applications for admission. I am interested in that particular area of impact as people talk about access.
Okay, if we continue here, Regent Rolmack, believe you had a request?
Thank you. I'd like to thank Chancellor Martin and her very well-organized, focused, and aggressive task force for designing and implementing an outstanding, comprehensive, collaborative process for addressing the legitimacy and the well-defined needs of undergraduates at UW-Madison. I've read the letters. I've heard robust arguments for and against the Madison Differentiated Initiative. And while I have mixed feelings about the issue that I may actually characterize as a dilemma, meaning a problem with several solutions, all of which are bad, and that they have the potential for making tuition less affordable for somebody. This is not in any way a statement against the well-defined, dedicated, and compassionate and positive influence that this process has had on students, faculty, and academic staff at the UW-Madison campus. And for that, I would like to publicly thank Chancellor Martin. Thank you very much.
Regent Loftus.
Well, I'm an enthusiastic supporter of this, and I too want to thank Chancellor Martin for a magnificent political and public campaign to explain this and include all of the people that needed to be included. And I just want to say that what hasn't been reported widely, and I would like the Board of Regents to know that she also had a campaign in the legislature and among alumni. Part of this was to travel the United States and to visit alumni and to explain it and to get their support. The other point is that we're making an investment here in tough times. And this is a clear signal, I think, to the campus, to the legislature, and the wider community. And like President Bradley, I was thinking last night, too. And I heard on the radio that we're now back to the 1983 levels of unemployment and deficits and whatnot. And I remember those two budgets well, the 81-83 and 83-85. Terrible times, terrible budgets. But from that, those years came the faculty catch-up pay plan, the peer system for pay, higher academic standards for admission, which led to changed high school curriculums throughout the state. We had enrollment caps at some institutions, which led to the flourishing of other institutions that were underutilized. It was kind of the end of the Madison versus the rest debate, and everyone understood. And there was also a difference between the two budgets, one where the Regents didn't have a plan, and one where the Regents did have a plan, and that really made a difference. And because we have, through the leadership of Kevin and the chancellors and the Regents, we do have a plan. This is important for the legislature, because this time, even though it seems like a difficult time, is a time of opportunity for the university system. Last point is, this was a great learning period for a certain legislator that went on to become governor for a number of years. And the university, I think, fared well because of that. So, don't underestimate the opportunity we have here, and I would hope that other campuses would bring forth to the Regents in the future their vision of how their campus might address its needs. So, congratulations to Chancellor Martin.
Regent Bartel. Apropos the last comment that Tom just made with other campuses coming forward, I think that's fine, that other campuses should examine their vision and bring it to the Board of Regents. The caution that I have about this whole subject, and really the only hesitation that I have regarding the Madison Initiative is the effect that it might have with respect to the state's obligation to finance higher education. I am concerned if we take the pressure off the legislature by passing it along to students in years ahead. As we all know, the state's percentage share of support for the university system has been declining in the last quarter century, and tuition has been rising. Tuition is still relatively low among our peers, but at some point, if we keep passing the costs of the education we are providing to students, it's not going to be among the lowest, and it will move toward the highest. I think we have to keep the heat on our decision makers in Madison to properly fund the university system, and we can't just keep asking students to pay it. In the last analysis, though, with respect to the Madison Initiative, it is, what are we getting for the money? And that's where Chancellor Martin has done a fabulous job of seeking input from students, faculty, the alumni. I was present at one of those sessions that she held out in Tucson. She has described the advantages of this initiative extremely well, and with the financial aid that goes with it, I think it's a very good plan, and I'm going to vote for it.
Regent Davis.
I agree. I want to start by saying I agree with Regent Loftus on a few things here. One of which is I would like to join the fan club for Chancellor Biddy Martin for all of the reasons that have been eloquently described. I would like to also say that the students, both pro and con, presentation, I think, reflect the thoughtfulness on this campus, and also, to me, confirm their considerable and authentic participation in the process. So I think that's another reason to commend. The other thing I agree with Regent Loftus about is the issue of the impact on other institutions. If we will recall, most of us who were on the Board of Regents at that time encouraged La Crosse to be the first campus to sort of deviate from the cookie-cutter approach to tuition, and for very good reasons. I very much supported that initiative as well, because it speaks to the need for us as regents and policymakers, if you will, to encourage, how do we improve the quality of the educational experience for our students in an affordable way. So for us to be courageous and allow each of the institutions to thoughtfully figure that out, and for us to get out of the way of that, I think, is what we are being presented with as an opportunity in support of the Madison Initiative. So in conclusion, I absolutely am in support of the initiative, and so that's it. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion? Colleen, Regent Thomas.
Thank you. I speak today also in favor of the Madison Initiative. In the last almost 2 years, I've heard a lot about the financial troubles that our universities are in, and particularly Madison, in talking with professors and staff who have been there for a long time and watched what is to them a very concerning decline in the quality and access to core courses that they're able to offer. And I am convinced that this initiative will respond to some of the most urgent needs on campus. And that's very encouraging. I think it will improve morale a lot, and with morale, then expand the quality and vigor with which we pursue a high-quality undergraduate education. I also am encouraged that we may have more substantial buying power in this current market as we go forward. It's a terrible time to put this additional cost onto our families, but it will also really benefit the university in ways that it might not have a few years ago, I think. Maybe not, maybe other people have ideas, but it sounds like that's a possibility. I think the most compelling and enduring student criticism for this has come from the notion that this is another step on the path of expecting students to pay more and more for their education. And the more the price of an education goes up, the harder it is for a lot of families to consider it possible to attain. And at the same time, I mean, we have to say that this is a really substantial step towards helping those lower income families achieve that education, which is tremendous, but on principle, there is still a lot of concern in the student community. So I guess I'll leave it there, but with my strong support. Thank you.
Regent Opgenorth.
Although I do support the Madison initiative, I do have a few concerns, and I guess they are stemming from the student who came and spoke opposing the initiative. And I guess two of the questions that I still am wrestling is how has student engagement altered or changed this initiative since we've heard that there were 621 comments from students and several hundred other comments. How have these comments been implemented into the initiative? And then a second question that I'm wrestling with is how many of the freshmen, people who will be paying this for all 4 years, what was the response rate from those students, and how much do they know about it? I know that we've had student leaders who are typically juniors and seniors who will be not seeing this be implemented during their time. So I guess I'm just kind of curious on how that's being addressed.
Well, I don't think anybody on the board has that information. Maybe someone in the room has that information. Chancellor Martin? Would you please?
Kevin, thank you for those questions. First, the students posed a number of questions to us, some of which came through the ASM list of questions after their partial endorsement, and we responded to them to the satisfaction of the student council. And some of the changes we made included clarifying the $80,000 hold harmless and explaining need eligibility to the students to their satisfaction. It also included explaining and committing to implement the forms of oversight, student oversight, but also overall shared governance oversight that the students had concerns about seeing in advance of having the proposal considered by the regents. There were also student ideas about the kinds of student services and also changes in faculty-student relationships on campus that they thought we hadn't adequately emphasized. And so we changed our list and our emphasis on the kinds of things we thought that funding for student services and curriculum transformation ought to address. Those are some examples. There's a longer list of examples that I can give you, which we presented in the slides for the committee yesterday. That was the first question. The second was about entering freshmen. What I can say there is obviously since we haven't known who those entering freshmen are going to be, we couldn't contact them in the same way we could contact current students. However, as you probably know, the Madison Initiative has gotten widespread coverage in the press in the state of Wisconsin, not only in the Wisconsin State Journal and the Cap Times, in our own Badger Herald and Daily Cardinal, but also, yes, Daily Cardinal. I sometimes say Daily Sun because of my days at Cornell, the Daily Cardinal, but also in the papers in Racine, in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, in the Green Bay papers. So across the state, there's been widespread coverage of the proposal and what it would mean for students. And our applications are strong. And as always, we've been able to admit far fewer than we would like, given the number of applications. I expect that that will continue to be the case. I think applications at most universities in this state and elsewhere are somewhat down because of the economy this year, but we will still be able to admit far too few students, and it has nothing to do with this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Chancellor Martin. And President Riley.
I could just add a comment to Chancellor Martin's on that in response to Regent Opgenorth's first question about the effect of student input, and this is kind of ironic. A staff person for one of the very few legislators who expressed some opposition to this to us said to a person on my staff, "Boy, I went to a couple of those forums, and they're really listening to the students. They're making a lot of changes in this thing as they go along. I mean, they'll take almost any change a student offers and put it in the platform." So it was a criticism from the other side that the campus was being too responsive to student input. So I thought you'd enjoy hearing about that, Regent Opgenorth.
Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. With one abstention, Madam Secretary.
I'd like to explain it real briefly.
Okay. Regent Falbo.
I'll keep it brief because my concerns were heard in nauseous detail yesterday. But I totally support the goals and the uses of funds to provide financial aid and instructional support. I cannot support the sources of the funds. And trying to weigh those, I wish they were separate questions, but they're not. I can't vote no because the uses of the funds are so important. So I guess I just ended by saying, Biddy, all the work you've done, and Kevin and everybody involved, I wish you the greatest success with this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Regent Falbo.
Good morning, this is David Wall.
Good morning, David. And Eileen, are you with us also?
I'm with you.
Oh, she is. Okay. So Regent Connolly-Kiesler and Regent Walsh are here. And David and Eileen, did you hear the question and did you vote?
Yes.
Was that a no?
That's a yes.
Oh, that was a yes.
I don't know
Okay.
what David said, but she said yes.
Okay.
No, I did not vote.
Would you like to be registered as having voted?
You'll have to tell me the subject. Even I need to know that.
Well, yes is the answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't know when you...
I just returned from where I was.
Okay, good. We have had...
Just with psychic powers.
We have had a very healthy discussion on the Madison Initiative for undergraduates.
I'm very familiar with it, and I vote yes.
Madam Secretary, if you would just add that to the tally. Good. Thank you very much. I will return to Regent Smith. Yes. Yes, you may.
But you got to go to the mic.
I thank the board, but I'm not going to take your time thanking you because we have important business. What I want to say is I appreciate all the compliments about the way we dealt with the initiative, but it was a team effort, and some of the team members are here, members from my office, the provost's office, the registrar's office, admissions, the communications team, the deans, and I simply don't want to take the credit only for myself. It was a wonderful collaborative effort, and one of the positive effects of the entire thing will be the collaborative effort and the teamwork we built with students, faculty, staff, and among ourselves in the administration. Thank you.
Chancellor Martin, there had been a criticism made about, I think they said, Chancellor Martin and her relatively new team, and one of your deans corrected that and said, young team. Right. Regent Smith.
We dealt with a couple of trust fund issues. First, we heard about the System Annual Endowment Peer Benchmarking Report from Doug Herr. He presented highlights from 3 benchmarking studies, the UW Trust Funds exceeded those of peers in the 1, 3, 5, and 10-year periods ending June 30th, 2008. Also of note is that our 4% spending rate is more conservative than the peer average of 4.8. Our second item on trust funds was with regard to the voting of 2009 non-routine proxy proposals. Regent Policy 3110 provides that the proxy voting policy for UW system trust funds. The dominant social issues for the 2009 season include the environment and sustainability, corporate political contributions, healthcare issues, and human rights. The committee approved Resolution 12B2, the non-routine shareholder proxy proposals for UW system trust funds, which will be included in the consent agenda. We heard from Julia Gordon on several audit issues. The first one was with regard to our UW system excess credit policy. We heard about the findings of this recently completed review. The report notes that the policy has been implemented at all UW institutions, though there's been some variations in the application of the surcharge. Management concurs with the report's recommendation that UW System Administration revise its policies to clarify how the surcharge is to be assessed and advise institutions to review their accounting practices to ensure that the revenues are properly and appropriately coded. The other audit report we heard about was the one concerning children's centers at UW institutions. Julie briefed the committee on this recently completed review. The review notes that while progress has been made with respect to the recommendations made after the initial review, some centers continue to have challenges with national accreditation in documenting that student parents are the beneficiaries of segregated fee funding, and there are some operating deficits. Management agrees that additional steps need to be taken in those areas. Julie presented a status report on current projects that the Office of Operations Review and Audit is working on, and those include UW-sponsored camps and clinics and service learning efforts within the UW system. We'll be hearing more on at a later date. Debbie Durkin gave us a report on quarterly gifts, grants, and contracts. She reported total awards of $1.1 billion are being reported for the quarter ending March 31st, 2009, which represents an increase of $189 million from the prior year. Non-federal awards were up $101 million, while federal awards increased by $88 million. The committee approved the following resolutions, which I now present as a consent agenda. I move the following: Resolution 12B2, approval of the voting of the 2009 non-routine proxy proposals. Resolution 12F2, approval of a 7-year food service contract with, I think he's saying this right, Sodexo operations to provide dining services at UW-Eau Claire. And Resolution 12F3, approval of a 7-year food service contract with Sodexo at UW Parkside. I move those resolutions.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda? Not. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
One final item, Mr. President. We talked about, Tom Andrews presented an update on some federal legislation, which I think we'll be hearing more at subsequent meetings. One was on credit cards. It was legislation that's pending that I think Senator Cole has been a major sponsor on, and a second on financial aid challenges to Pell Grants. Tom also talked about one stimulus project currently underway involving broadband access that exemplifies the necessity to create partnerships throughout the state in order to be competitive for federal funds. He stated the system is trying to identify funding for grant writers to try to assess other stimulus funding opportunities. Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll now turn to Regent Bartel to give us the report of the Capital Planning and Budget Committee.
Thank you, President Bradley. The Capital Planning and Budget Committee met jointly with the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee for an update of the UW-Milwaukee Master Plan yesterday, and that was presented by Vice Chancellor Christy Brown and architect and UW alumna Laura Striggins. The last time that we received an update on the Milwaukee Plan was last June, and a lot of activity has occurred since then. The presentation covered the master plan process and the key elements of that process, which include academic planning, research growth, and physical planning for the campus. There are actually 4 phases to the master plan. The first phase was observation and assessment. That's pretty much been completed. the vision phase, which has also pretty much been completed. They are currently in portions of the design studies phase, and this involves finding sites, opportunity sites, with particular focus on the Kenwood campus. And then finally, the Phase D, which is implementation, the tough thing of looking at financial and operational issues and other costs of implementation, and that will proceed. They've had, their master plan committee has had many meetings. They've had presentations, listening sessions, and so on. They have 100-plus campus representatives on various master plan committees, and they're reaching out to the campus community for input. They expect to complete the master plan process by this coming December. Then the Capital Planning and Budget Committee convened separately to take up its work, and the minutes of the March meeting were approved. The following 6 resolutions were unanimously approved by the Capital Planning and Budget Committee and are now presented as consent agenda items. Resolution 1.3.C, which was brought by UW-Madison, requests approval to seek a waiver allowing a design-build construction procedure for the physical plant, shops, and office building project. This is a building that's needed in connection with the Charter Street heating plant renovation and rebuilding. It will include house offices, shop spaces, stores, and storage operations. It's a $4.6 million item, which is already included in the 2009-11 capital budget for the Charter Street plant rebuilding project. Resolution 1.3.E requests authority to adjust the budget and construct the UW-Oshkosh Elmwood Center remodeling addition. This project will renovate the existing Elmwood Center and add approximately 11,000 square feet of additional space for student support, development, academic resource functions from scattered locations around the campus. The design of the building is heavily influenced by principles of sustainability, and the building and mechanical systems will be designed to be considerably more energy efficient than the current building code requires. Resolution 1.3.F was presented by UW-Platteville. It requests authority to purchase land and accept a gift of 2 other parcels for the purpose of future road construction. The university, as some of you may know, plans to use these properties for a new improved campus entrance from Highway 151. And it's a project that's being undertaken in coordination with the Grant County Highway Department and the City of Platteville. Resolution 1.3.G requests authority to demolish Higher Hall and increase the budget slightly to construct the UW Stevens Point new residential hall project. This project was enumerated in the 2007-09 capital budget at $35.5 million and will construct a 323-bed, 6-story suite-style residence hall that will replace Higher Hall, which is being torn down. The building design will include sustainability features, emphasizing energy efficiency, long-term durability, and maintenance, and is expected to obtain a LEED Silver certification. The budget increase of it's only about 1.4% from what was enumerated, represents the addition of electrical distribution, utility work. The project will be financed by and operated through program revenue, that is room rental rates, which will be are projected to be about $4,500 a year, which is the same as a single room rate in the existing res halls there at Stevens Point. Resolution 1.3.H requests authority to increase the budget of UW Stout Hoblet Hall renovation and addition project by about $600,000, which is about 5%, to allow the bids to be accepted for this $13 million project. And finally, Resolution 1.3.I is authority to increase by about $800,000 the budget for an all-agency maintenance and repair project at the UW-Madison involving the renovation of the University Houses preschool building, which I understand is located up at Eagle Heights. These 6 resolutions were passed unanimously by the committee, and I move adoption of the resolutions 1.3.c, E, F, G, H, and I.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. It's moved and seconded. Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Then Associate Vice President David Miller updated us on the progress of the 2009-11 capital budget, and he reported that the Building Commission approved a total statewide capital budget authorizing $484 million in new general fund supported borrowing for that budget. Of that amount, the UW system will use approximately $346 million. As you know, the UW system is the major user of the general fund supported borrowing for the state. We build more buildings than almost all the other agencies combined, which is, and this is about 70% of that amount. And that's roughly proportionate to our total gross square feet of state-owned facilities. He also reported, unfortunately, that the committee failed to approve the process improvement proposals that we recommended. You recall that we discussed those at our last meeting. We are trying to assess the reasons for that and the possibility of trying to present those process changes to the Joint Finance Committee. We're still hopeful that they will get into the capital budget. If not, we're going to consider separate legislation, or maybe we'll have to wait for the next capital budget. To me, it seems like a no-brainer. It doesn't cost the state. It isn't an extra expenditure of funds. It actually will save money in improving the efficiency of the planning and construction process for buildings for the UW system. It is relatively conservative change from what it currently exists, but it would be very important to improve the process. So we will work on that. Finally, Planning and Systems Specialist Tom Bittner gave us a report about the All-Agency Projects Program and how it is specifically targeted at maintenance and repair projects. This is a capital budget item intended to address all agencies' need for facilities repairs, health and safety issues, remodeling, and utilities. It is a fund that is available to us on a monthly basis to look at those particular items. We're talking about such things as crumbling walls, mechanicals, improvements, electrical repairs, plumbing, utility upgrades, flooring, walls, windows, energy conservation methods, relatively minor renovations to existing facilities. Recent increases in that funding were intended to decrease the maintenance backlog. However, Tom told us that funding availability remains at less than half of the demonstrated need, and the percentage of projects requested that are deferred has grown from 30% about 5 or 6 years ago to now it's nearly 80%. What that means, of course, is that results from aging facilities, and as he told us that many of our facilities were built between 1958 and 1970, and there was a big building boom during that period, and those facilities are in need of improvement. This is a serious problem for the system. We need to address that. We're going to have to figure out how we can repair our facilities and keep them operating. and we will be working on that in the weeks and months ahead. Mr. President, this concludes the report of the Capital Planning and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Regent Bartel. Now I'll call upon Regent Davis to present the report of the Education Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin my report by presenting the actions taken yesterday in the joint meeting of the Education and Business and Finance and Audit Committees to the full board for its approval, as mentioned by Regent Brent Smith. Most of you were present at the presentation and discussion yesterday on interim textbook guidelines and know that the two committees unanimously approved the interim guidelines. I would like to now move Resolution 11A, approving the UW System's interim guidelines for making textbooks affordable, as the sole consent agenda item from that joint meeting.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Also, as mentioned by Regent Smith, we did have a presentation to the joint committees that we all participated in relative to alcohol and drug abuse, and particularly at the UWM campus. That was a very sobering presentation by Chancellor Santiago and Dr. DuPont. However, there was no action requested of us. Just wanted to mention, since Brent mentioned it, I needed to mention it, so therefore I mentioned it. Okay, good. All right, so Mr. President, I am now pleased to report the summary from yesterday's meeting of the Education Committee. I plan to briefly highlight some of the key actions we took yesterday, move those actions as part of the consent agenda for the full board, and then report on some of our deliberations and action on UWS Chapters 17 and 18. The committee approved a number of new academic programs yesterday, including 3 doctoral programs. We heard a joint presentation on the Doctor of Nursing Practice degrees at UW-Eau Claire and UW-Oshkosh. As you know, these are the first 2 doctoral degrees to be offered by UW Comprehensives. The committee was eminently comfortable approving these degrees. A lot of groundwork has been done in the last year and a half by the Comprehensives themselves and through the leadership of Senior Vice President Martin and her office to do the following: provide a knowledge base for us as regents to understand the changing practice and accreditation requirements, as well as workforce demands leading to the development of more professional doctorates. 2, establishing guidelines by which the comprehensives can offer professional doctorates. 3, clarify the reasons why the Doctor of Nursing Practice is the credential required by advanced practice nurses. 4, provide extensive data on employer and workforce needs for both Wisconsin and the nation, detailing in compelling terms the projected shortage of advanced practice nurses and nursing faculty. So the joint presentation by UW-Eau Claire and UW-Oshkosh made clear that both institutions have the faculty, the curricula, the resources, and the student demand to offer their respective DNPs. Moreover, the committee was satisfied that the newly established guidelines by which the comprehensives can offer professional doctorates were well met. UW-Eau Claire and UW-Oshkosh have collaborated from the very beginning in developing these programs, and they will continue to collaborate with each other in offering them. The 3rd doctoral degree presented to the committee was the PhD in Clinical Investigation at UW-Madison. This is a fascinating degree program, an emerging field focusing on providing clinicians with the rigorous training across multi-disciplines to conduct cutting-edge research. The UW School of Medicine and Public Health has received $41 million in NIH funding to establish the new Institute for Clinical and Translation Research, which will house the new PhD program. This program is interdisciplinary and collaborative at its core, involving the UW Schools of Medicine and Public Health, Nursing, Veterinary Medicine, Pharmacy, and the College of Engineering, as well as the Marshfield Clinic. It will help prepare future generations of clinician scientists to lead multidisciplinary research teams and to translate scientific discoveries to applications that improve human health. Next, we have the UWM presentation, Access to Success, Succeeding in the Classroom. In the interest of time, I'm going to limit myself to some brief accolades for a presentation given by UW-Milwaukee Provost Rita Chang, Professor Diane Reddy of the Psychology Department, and by the way, a Teaching Excellence Award recipient, I believe, for 2007, and Professor Reddy's TA, Jessica Barnett, prior to presenting the consent agenda. Professor Reddy has developed a program for Psychology 101 called UPACE, in which students take online quizzes at their own pace and do not move forward in the course until they master the material, that is, get an A on every quiz. So just picture 24 quizzes versus 3 or 4 exams, but at your own pace, so like bite-sized pieces, if you will. This is a large gateway course for students, and the results in this course for those using the UPACE model, in particular for students of color and at-risk students, are phenomenal. Professor Reddy and Ms. Barnack presented data showing dramatic gains in student performance, retention, and even achievement in other courses taken by these students enrolled in the UPACE program. A real closing of the achievement gap is demonstrated by the UPACE model. As we noted yesterday, this is cause for both celebration and replication, and UW-Milwaukee is planning to expand the model to other disciplines, beginning with sociology this summer. I ask that all Regents get email copies of the UPACE presentation so that you too can be blown away by the results. So the consent agenda. Regent Bradley, in addition to the minutes from its February 5th, 2009 meeting, the Education Committee unanimously approved 10 resolutions that I now present as consent agenda items for approval by the full board. Number 1, Resolution 11A1, approving the Doctor of Nursing practice at UW-Eau Claire. Resolution 11A2, approving the Doctor of Nursing practice at UW-Oshkosh. Resolution 11A3, approving the PhD in Clinical Investigation at UW-Madison. And Resolution 11C, approving the appointments of Dr. Evelyn Howell and Mr. Patrick Robinson as University of Wisconsin System representatives to the Natural Areas Preservation Council. Resolution 11F2, approving the appointment of Christine Holmes to the UW School of Medicine and Public Health's Oversight and Advisory Committee of the Wisconsin Partnership Program. Resolution 11F3, authorizing implementation of the BS in Community and Nonprofit Leadership at UW-Madison. Resolution 11F4, authorizing implementation of the collaborative online BS in Sustainable Management at UW-Parkside, UW-River Falls, UW-Stout, UW-Superior, with administrative and financial support from UW-Extension. Resolution 11F5, authorizing implementation of the MS in Technical and Professional Communication at UW-Stout. Resolution 11F6, authorizing implementation of the Master of Physician Assistant Studies at UW-Madison. And finally, Resolution 11F7, approving the UW System's annual request to the Vilas Trust Estate for support of scholarships, fellowships, professorships, and special programs in music and other areas. Okay, repeat it back to me. Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
So the bulk of the committee's 3.5-hour meeting was spent in consideration of the proposed revisions of chapters 17 and 18. Regent Spector did a wonderful job. I'll keep it there instead of going, okay, keep it there, okay. I went on and on and on about accolades about my colleague here. But anyway, Regent Spector did a wonderful job in summarizing for us the most substantive issues in the proposed revisions. I think we all know that the biggest point of contention is whether or not students should be allowed to have lawyers representing them at disciplinary hearings, and in what capacity. Advisory versus representation, let's call it. Our discussion yesterday focused quite a bit on that point, although there are obviously other contested revisions as well. We did our best to address, at least briefly, most of the concerns that were raised in advance of the meeting in the emails and letters and phone calls we've all received. We heard from several speakers, including Irvin Kip Cox from the UW-Madison's Dean of Students Office, Mary Beth Mackin, Assistant Dean of Students at UW-Whitewater, Jim Hill, Dean of Students at UW-Milwaukee, and as we have all heard so eloquently, China Haas, who also came to our committee, a student at UW-Madison. My guess is that there are Regents who were not at our meeting yesterday who would still like to discuss the proposed revisions. Let me tell you, however, where we ended up. We have a number of dissatisfied people and groups unhappy that certain changes were made following the public hearing on March 6th here in Milwaukee and in response to that hearing. Let's remember that this process of rule revision has been carefully conducted to provide transparency and allow for wide input emphasis on wide input from many different groups and people over the past 2.5 years. Nonetheless, the committee agreed yesterday to postpone consideration of Resolution 11B, approving the rule revisions, 1 month to our meeting in June. In that time, we agreed that we would take certain steps led by the Office of Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. Those steps include: we will collect data on the number of expulsions, suspensions, and attorneys present at disciplinary hearings system-wide for the last 5 years as best we can. We will ascertain the hearing practices in place at the campuses for cases involving sexual assault. We will check on the availability of legal aid counsel in our university communities for students without the means to obtain counsel, and relatedly, whether or not students have access to public defenders if they need them. We will ask President Bradley, we are asking President Bradley to promptly convene a group led by Regent Spector, who's agreed to do this, to develop compromise language based on our discussion yesterday. We will inform all those who have contacted us about yesterday's proceedings and make it clear that we welcome their additional input, albeit within the next month. The revised rules with the compromise language will come back to the Regents at our meeting in June. We still hope to have new rules in place by September of 2009, which has been the goal all along. It is possible, however, depending on our action in June and what the legislature then does with the rules, that that is the revised rules, be in place by September. I'd like to invite other members of the Education Committee if they would like to add anything to what I've presented on our discussion.
Regent Loftus?
I don't want to add anything. I just want to compliment the chairman on her stewardship of the committee through this period, and Regent Spector on his calmness during this period, and for the chair to allow me and David to fully explore the issues involved here. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So let me conclude, Mr. President, by observing that the Education Committee moved into closed session upon the adjournment of its regular meeting at 4:41 p.m., just in time for refreshments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to call upon Vice President Pruitt to present the resolution of appreciation to UW-Milwaukee.
Our esteemed president of the University of Wisconsin system. As we all know, Kevin is fond of quoting literature, often poetry from some dead Irish dude that I've never heard of. My author is very much alive. He is Cormac McCarthy, who wrote a remarkable book called The Road, which I don't know if any of you have read. It's about a father and son who are wandering across post-apocalyptic America, trying to reach the coast. Along the way, they witness unspeakable acts, and at one point, the father and son are talking. They sat by the side of the road and ate the last of the apples. "What is it?" the man asked. "Nothing. We'll find something to eat. We always do." The boy didn't answer. The man watched him. "Just tell me," the boy said. "We wouldn't eat anybody, would we?" "No, of course not. Even if we're starving now. You said we weren't." "I said we weren't dying. I didn't say we weren't starving." "But we wouldn't." "No, we wouldn't. No matter what." "No, no matter what. Because we're the good guys." "Yes. And we're carrying the fire." "And we're carrying the fire." "Yes." The UWM research growth and access agenda that Carlos Santiago has championed, and this campus and this community has embraced, is more than one program or even one collection of programs. It is really also a state of mind, an enthusiasm, an energy to reach higher and dream bigger. It's all about carrying the fire. So once again at this meeting in Milwaukee, we acknowledge and affirm our strong support for this agenda and our own commitment to carry the fire even in dark and challenging budget times. And Carlos, in case you haven't heard, we're really glad you stayed. Welcome home. So I offer this resolution. Whereas the members of the Board of Regents, the University of Wisconsin system, are pleased to learn more about UW-Milwaukee's growing emphasis on research at all levels of the student experience, as discussed in Chancellor Carlos Santiago's presentation and relayed through the first-hand accounts of undergraduate and graduate students. And whereas the Regents commend UW-Milwaukee's commitment to a safe and healthy campus and support the steps being taken by the Norris Health Center under the leadership of its director, Dr. Julia Bonner, to address a broad range of healthcare issues of major concern to the campus community, including additional focus on mental health issues, a topic examined in the 2008-2009 academic year by the Campus Mental Health Task Force. And whereas UW-Milwaukee campus master plan process continues to proceed under the leadership of several campus executives, including Chancellor Santiago, Provost Rita Chang, Vice Chancellor Christy Brown, Dean Robert Greenstreet, Director Claude Schutte, Associate Vice Chancellor Patricia Arredondo, Assistant Director Christopher Gleasing, Associate Professor Leanne Garrison, a lot of people, Professor Alan Horowitz, and Associate Professor Mary Lou Gelfer, whose combined efforts are helping to revitalize the campus infrastructure to meet the future needs of students, the community, and the region. And whereas, through the Action to Success campaign and other efforts, UW-Milwaukee has quickly become a leader and an innovator in providing educational opportunities that are accessible and affordable for many students, and the campus has consequently experienced increased enrollment and student interest. And whereas the Regents appreciate UW-Milwaukee's hospitality and the opportunity to see firsthand the university's new Welcome Center, operated by the Division of Recruitment and Outreach in the refurbished Vogel Hall. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin system extends its gratitude to the staff, faculty, and students of UW-Milwaukee for supporting the mission of the UW system and graciously hosting this productive May 2009.
Thank you, Regent Pruitt, and Madam Secretary, I'd ask that the record shows that that was approved by acclamation. Are there any communications, petitions, or memorials? Okay. In unfinished business, I would just like to comment that Chancellor Linda Bunnell from the UW-Stevens Point, as we all know, submitted her resignation. She's going to be returning to Boulder, Colorado, which is not such a bad place to return to. And when something like that happens, when a chancellor dies, becomes incapacitated, or resigns, the immediate challenge for us, of course, is who can step in on an interim basis, who, with the least amount of disruption to what is going on in that campus. And I'm happy to announce that Provost and now Interim Chancellor Mark Nook has agreed to do that. I have heard from faculty at UW-Stevens Point, deans, from alumni, from foundation people, even the mayor of Stevens Point called and said, we're lucky. That is the right person at the right time to step in as Interim Chancellor. So welcome, Interim Chancellor Mark Nook. So if there is no other unfinished business, we'll take a 10-minute recess. Chancellor Martin, I couldn't say no to your students. I can't say no to you.
I would just feel terrible if I didn't do this. When I was listing all of the partners and members of the team and the offices, I didn't mention the word finance. And the person who was with me and developed this Madison Initiative for Undergraduates from the outset was Daryl Bazell. And I want to recognize Daryl for the great work he does and make sure that when I mentioned the names of the offices with which I work, that I didn't leave out the one with which I actually worked most collaboratively from the origin. Daryl, thank you.
So we'll take a 10-minute recess, convene an open session, and then consider a resolution to go into closed session.